Right. Coming back to everything that you just said, right? I have just updated a link, right? A submission link on the Canvas phase one, right? And in the Canvas phase one, you will be submitting your project proposal form or the draft of it, right? You don't need any signatures at this point in time. I just want to see the form, right? Ensure that you kind of highlight what's the problem, what you intend to do. Because we need to have an idea what is the problem and what you plan to solve, right? And with that now, you are able to formulate something called requirements. That is the deliverables, what the system is going to do. What is the objective, right? Sometimes the objective is to produce a receipt, to give customer notification via online platforms, okay? Right? Provide feedback, probably store data and give statistical, right, or historical information, right, in form of charts, etc. Okay, for better decision making. Understand? Now, always remember when you're doing this thing, there's also rules governing the process. We call it business rules, and you need to understand business rules. That's where requirements analysis and stuff comes in. When you all did that with Ms. Ramsubiru, right? That is why you do the interviews and so on. Okay, so you have to do your investigation and your background research. So we want to iron out exactly which direction you're going, right? Make sure your deliverables and stuff is good enough, complex enough, right? Or quantity is good enough, right? I warned you before, if you're using a cloud service, it is very easy to develop and roll out applications and interfaces. Therefore, I am going to be grilling you more on the decision. That is the data, the processing and the data to make informed decisions. And the more reports, the better. Okay? Integration of AI, data science, whatever is also welcome, right? But I expect to see some sort of algorithm analysis and so on going on there, right? Those of us who are developing from scratch, obviously, we are going to have a bigger hurdle. We have to bring researchy technologies, bring them together, and formulate a thing, right? Integrate everything together. No, I'm going to give you a warning, right? Normally, at the diploma level and the lower levels, we just simply rule out our web server and our database and our website. That's all well and good, but we want to take it up a notch, right? We want to cater for different devices. We want to have a nice interface that deals with differently able people, EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion. We want you to consider something called security. A simple password does not cut it anymore, right? If you're doing a simple password, you cannot just store it in a database. You have to use some sort of algorithm. There's hashing algorithms and so on available. If you're using modules from GitHub and so on, make sure you reference them, right? You need to decipher what is your code versus what was already available out there, right? And you use the APA style, referencing style. That is what we have in UTT, right? There are a number of books and stuff available on the library website. I believe I gave some examples and so on. And also, all you are blessed to have an AI engine out there. You can actually um, just simply go to a platform, right? And you could just simply enter the name of the textbook and the author, and it will automatically generate this APA referencing style for you, right? So you don't even have to rack your head too much, but you need to understand the APA reference style, right? That is where people drop the ball. They go and they pull information from all over the place, make mention of it in the report, but the referencing is a bit poor, right? So you need to flush that out. Okay? Be mindful of your designs and so on. Right? So all that is part of your consideration when you are creating your application. Good. There's also turnaround time and the complexity of accessing the information on the road, dependent. So you have to choose your environment. Just be mindful of that, folks. Right? So again, coming back to my point, for those of us who just joined, let's give it a second here for his audio to connect. Okay, I guess no good. Right? So coming back to the point, I want your project proposal form. You don't need to have signatures and from other instructors and so on. I just want to see it. I want to see a draft. Okay? In the format. Okay? I expect to see a problem statement where you're trying to solve. I expect to see what are the features that you are going to implement, right, to help resolve the problem. Simple as that, right? So obviously, we need to have certain amount of deliverables. If it's too short, I'm going to tell you that. If it's very big, I'm going to tell you cut it down. Okay? Be very careful when it comes to what we call IoT. So majority of the projects we're going to be doing, even though we're saying embedded systems, it may be classified as an IoT once you have connectivity coming out of the device. A majority of the times it's going to have connectivity, either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Okay? So just be mindful of that as you roll out your systems, right? You need to do 3 systems minimum, right? Where you do your comparisons, okay? And a major downside of when you're doing the comparisons is cost, because a lot of the systems that are available already, right? There is a hefty licensing fee, okay? So we want to get away from that by creating our own homegrown solution using open source, so to speak. But once you use open source, just remember to consider security. So security is another aspect. Everybody on the same page? Everybody understand what's going on? Right? So if you do that simple website, there are elements that you must add to it. Okay? Some people did websites and they added an AI element in the form of a chatbot. That is also welcomed and good. Right? So be mindful of all those things. Okay? Make sure that your systems can work on various devices, especially if you're doing website stuff, right? Where you can do things very simply. So make sure that your interface is nice, it's clean, and it's simple. And it flows or it adjusts according to the devices, right? So you should, if you're doing web programming, you should be learning all those techniques when it comes to those things. But if you want, we can discuss it here also. Okay? Any questions so far? Everybody quiet. What's going on? Are you hearing me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Sure. All right. Okay. I expect you guys to think like engineers. I expect you to think like developers, right? Engineers means that people that come in to view a problem and using the techniques that they have learned, right? They are going to apply it to solve the problem. You are solving a problem. So right now, I want to find out the problems, right? What you're developing. Is it an uncle restaurant? Okay. Is it in the agricultural sector? Is it in the government sector that provides services to everyday individuals? Right? Is it for a private business? Is it to create something new for a household individual? Is it a game to to overcome learning disability. Understand? Right? It could be anything like that. Okay? Nothing is wrong with developing games and so on, but you will have to research something called Unity, right? To develop the interface of the game. Okay? So the floor is open basically as to which direction you want to go, right? You don't have to basically do website. Okay? And even if you do websites, we expect more than the standard. Okay? Because websites are no longer websites anymore. They are web applications. You can do many things on it now. You with me? Right? For example, a shipping company, Skybox, what we call Skybox in Trinidad and Tobago, right? We're a shipping company bringing in stuff, right? They provide alerts. You can get an alert on your phone when the package has been received in the Miami warehouse, when the package is cleared to come to Trinidad, and when the package is cleared for collection. You get alerts, right? So you sometimes have an app from the company, or you register with your phone number and they send you text messages and emails, right? So if your phone has no money and it cannot pay for a text message, you get it via Wi-Fi through emails, or sometimes they tie it to your WhatsApp. So you have a WhatsApp to the company and so on, and you can have a back and forth conversation. Understand me? It's all about customer support, right? You can have special requests if the item has to be delivered. So all those things can be done off our website. So you realize the website though has become more interactive. It's like an application, right? We call it web apps. So just be mindful of that as you develop your stuff. So it's not only about showing information, but it's about interaction. Okay, folks? And if you're going to crunch numbers and deal with a lot of numbers, then I expect a lot of charts. The charts is basically for decision making, right? And you get the decision making when you talk to professionals who are working in the industry, that particular industry, right? Because remember, we cannot know everything as IT developers. It's only when we go into the organization and we have conversations with people, right? We elicit something called requirements from them, what is expected of the system, what they would like to see, etc. And then you know create a system to make those deliverables. Understand me? Right? So remember, this is an iterative process, right? You're not gonna get in one shot. You have to keep thinking about it and trashing it out sometimes, right? And eventually, and very quickly, it settles, right? So this is we are approaching the 3rd week, going in 4th week, so to speak. It's the 18th. We started since the 1st of September, right? So by next week is the last week in the month, right? So we want to have a solid idea of which direction you are going for the rest of the year, rest of this academic year, right? Now, just remember, you all are doing courses that have final exams, right? But you will also have a presentation and a document to submit for this phase. So be mindful of that. You have to be working on this thing continuously. Put aside time, right? There are days, Friday, all you have supposed to have no class. Put aside a half day on Friday and sit down and, work on your stuff, please. Right? At least. You must have 2 or 3 days. You have to invest behind it. Is this clear? Right? And at least 4 hours for every day, 2 to 3 days. Right? So you could do a comprehensive research and so on and pull it together. Right? There are a lot of tools available to make this thing look more professionally. Back in my time, I would have written and rewritten 3 and 4 and up to 5 different versions of a document, the same document, right? Make sure that you have backups, right? Make sure your machine is working good enough for you to develop your prototype and for you to successfully complete the process, right? I'm giving you that warning up front, right? It's up to you to manage these things. And the reason why I'm saying that it's like this, when you go to work, either for yourself or for a private company, right, or even the organization, right, when they give a deadline, they don't want to hear that you have problems. They expect results within the time frame. That is something you cannot get away from when you work in world, right? So I want you to keep this in mind, and I'm going to drive you along that path, right? Yes, it's song a bit harsh, but this is the expectation in the industry. Are you with me, folks?
Yes, sir.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Right? I don't want all to get scared and but I want all to prepare. And this is the training to prepare for the working world, right? Good. And also it's your project. It is quite disheartening, right, in the past, to see people just coming and reading and all kind of thing, and they have no zeal for their project, man. Be excited and be happy for your project. It's your work. You understand? It's your work, right? Do something good. Be proud of what you're doing, right? And do it comprehensively and correctly. And you should have no issue with this final project. None, right? Just make the effort. That is all I'm asking. Don't keep putting it off. Don't keep putting it off, right? So we do not need to have weekly meetings, right? But I am still going to be checking on you, right? Moving forward. And I am going to be saying the same thing over and over again. Do not put down the project and expect things to happen last minute. It is a continuous work, right? And some of you are doing 2-year courses that are going to have heavy assignments and labs, etc. Those things are going to add up very, very shortly. Very, very shortly, you're going to be facing assignments and quizzes and so on, right? And those things are going to take away from your time. Good? So, be mindful of those things and stay on top of your project, please, right? So the first task, I want you to get cracking, right? If you have no class today, get cracking on it almost immediately, or tomorrow morning, first thing when you're fresh. I want you to upload your project proposal form using the template, the official template. You're doing any signatures at this point in time. I want to see it to ensure that it meets the standard of our degree project, right? Upon that, we trash it out, and you start heading out to the respective persons that you selected, that you want to work with, your supervisors, right? And finish it up, okay? But I want to get a general idea. Your supervisors, when they put their hands on it, they're going to make tweaks to that proposal, right? And make suggestions. But I am looking for a certain standard, right? If I find it a bit questionable, I will make suggestions also, right? And I want you to do a proper report, well formatted, etc. Just be mindful of that, right? As you do your projects. Is this clear with everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Investigate the technologies. Nothing wrong with using newer technologies. You don't have to rely on what was learned in classes, right? There are people using Django. There are people using React Native, right? There are people using Android. There are people who using MongoDB and so on, different databases, etc. Right? There are people who decided to use Microsoft Azure. Now, be careful with Azure. Azure have templates in it. Once I realize that you're using a cloud base that have templates, I expect you to have a comprehensive reports, right? With nice algorithms and so on, right? To help you make proper decisions. Because let's say Karen here doing something from scratch, he rolling out his own servers and so on, right? And let's say Aaron Lewis now say, nah, I'm using a cloud-based something, but the cloud-based have a lot of templates with that Aaron. So Aaron could roll out a whole website in 24 hours. Versus Karen, who have to put in 3 months of work to get his one to work. You understand? It's a bit unfair. I expect you, Aaron. I am just using these two gentlemen as examples, right? So I expect Aaron, right? Even though he's using templates, nothing wrong with that, right? But to master the system to produce nice charts and decision making and so on. Because if you decide on a cloud, there's a reason why you decided on a service. Because it provides the features on it, right? It provides mechanisms where you can get the features to make proper decision making, or probably real-time analysis or something like that, right? There's a reason why you would use a cloud system, right? or the solution is so complicated that developing it is going to be problematic. So we roll it out on the cloud, but we apply some sort of analysis within the system. So you implemented an algorithm, right, that applies statistical analysis or artificial modeling or something like that, that produces a charts to help you make decisions in the future based on past experience, etc. Okay, nothing is wrong with projects like that, right? But you gotta get data. That's the only thing. You gotta get massive amounts of data to make something like that work. Okay? So be mindful of all these things, folks, as you develop your systems, right? Remember, it's something that I like to tell students that it's something you could showcase when they go for a job interview, right? A prototype. You could show people your talent, your interface development skills, and so on, depending on the job you're going on. Okay? So be proud of what you're doing, right? And that is my suggestion to you, right? Any questions by anybody right now? None? You sure?
No, sir, I know what I'm doing.
From now we stick on. That's all. Nothing? All right. Mm-hmm. Well, sure, any questions? I am waiting on you guys to say something.
I know no question. One thing I have from the last time we spoke, I figured out a solution of the how to do the bin.
Right, well, it's up to you. You got to be creative, right?
Yeah. And so like my only thing I would say, like when you start writing like the method and then literary review, I still can't figure out how you reaching out to 50-something pages. I just find it's like
First thing you do is you determine what you do, right? So you're doing that IoT something, right?
yeah.
Now think about it this way. Let me talk about our robot vacuum. I just make it general here. I'm trying to find examples that all are not doing, right? So our robot vacuum. In your research about robot vacuums, what features they have? Anybody can tell me? I saw sure some of you, one or two of you probably have a robot vacuum at home.
Well, about the features, you had to sweep, you had to mop, you had to charge yourself.
Charge, right?
Yeah.
It also gives you on your mobile device when the robot is active, because majority of the time people use the vacuum when they're not at home. They're not at home. They expect to see when they come home, the place is clean, right? It makes no sense that the vacuum is working while you are sitting watching TV and so on and relaxing yourself, and this thing is buzzing around going. Okay? Or, right? So therefore, there are features, there probably are app and so on to control the vacuum, right? So there are feedback mechanisms available. So either comes on the device, you get alert on the home base station, right? Or you get an alert from the vacuum itself, right? Now, if the vacuum is mopping and sweeping and so on, then there are consumables. The consumables is probably bristles on the vacuum itself, probably a tank that has a special liquid, a detergent or something, right? And then there's probably pads that rotate to help scrub the floor, right? Those are what we call consumables, which you have to check from time to time. Then you have an issue where, right, we are Caribbean people, right? You will have, if you have pets, you will have a lot of hair on the ground. Even like human beings, you drop hair on the ground. You know for yourself by passing the broom in your home, right? That after a while, when you look down at the bristles on the broom, what do you see? Your hair, right? And if you have a lot of people in the home, there's more hair, right? And those things normally wrap around the motors and so on. So therefore, you have to give some sort of feedback. Same thing with a vacuum. The vacuum bag will get full at some time, or if you're using a wet dry vac, the filters get clogged from time to time, right? You need sensors to give you that. Just like how a vehicle have sensors to tell you certain things are wrong with it through lights. That is how we get feedback. right, with respect to a vehicle. So just be mindful of those things. And just like the robot vacuum, right? What are so many unique problems that we have in Trinidad and Tobago? Not everybody have time. Not everybody have hardwood floor. Not everybody have vinyl floors, right? Some people may have bare concrete and so on, right? Probably the wheels of the vacuum. We may have a lot of rugs, etc. So therefore, a vacuum that is geared towards, let's say, the North American market, etc. Our style of home in Trinidad and Tobago is a bit different. Good? We don't have clean modern looks, right? We tend to have, if your family is big, a very cluttered look, right? Especially when you have younger children around, right? So you could probably need to create a vacuum that to deal with the Caribbean lifestyle, so to speak, right? Where we have chips and all kind of thing all over the place and so on, and different foods and then being thrown to the floor, etc., etc., etc. Right? Probably something is spilt over the by the fridge. We don't have time to clean it up. Probably we can press an emergency vacuum, which has already been mapped to the fridge to deal with something, to deal with a spill in front of the fridge, and that could be a feature added to the vacuum, which is different to the others. Understand? So again, it's a simple thing. Yes, we have a machine that is vacuuming, but when we really think about it, of the different scenarios and so on, when we do our research, and how do we find the research? Well, we go on the internet, we read papers and so on, research papers and so on, right? We try to get as much information as we can on systems that already exist, the features that they provide, looking and comparing those features against what we're trying to solve, and see whether or not it can meet that. Okay? The same thing in Trinidad. We didn't come up with a tax system, we imported one from Canada. The question is now, yes, it works well, but did any tweaking was required? Do we have to tweak this particular system? We're paying X amount of dollars, right? We're paying a lot of money for this particular software and licensing, etc. Right? But majority of the times we have to tweak these applications to fit our needs here. Good. So you developing your system to, right? You developing your system to treat with our unique problems. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Right? So those are things you have to think about. So you started by doing the proposal form. Nice? And you may have to revise your proposal form, depending. Good? So don't get too worried. Just start it. Once you start it, you will see how it start to flow. Good? Any questions again?
Yes, so for the final presentation, I had to bring the animal.
Nah, you might have to go and do a little video and thing and show. Or, I don't know, you want to get your partner to say move and go on top of the table on all fours? Yeah, any friend, any good friend who will do that for you?
Now, so I can use like it is called like a model, like a little plastic model in
Yeah,
lieu
but
of the cow.
yeah, but you gotta show if you're using sensors and so on, right? You gotta apply it to yourself or something.
All right.
You understand? You
As
gotta,
I
you
was
gotta do a
thinking.
demo. You gotta do a demo, right? So you might have a
Yeah.
videotape a demo, and on the presentation they show the video, and then show the sensors and thing on a model or something, and look and show the comparison. Understand?
All right.
Mm-hmm. Right? Another thing is sometimes people run into a problem with sensors and so on, and coming close to the project, they're unable to do it, right? Sometimes in that case, I normally advise students to simulate values, right? But when you simulate in values, it can't just be a raw number. It must be a number that is in the format of the sensor. And then you have to be able to show the people who mark in, you as a presenter have to show the people, listen, this sensor giving me problems. But I'm going to simulate the issue and show you how the algorithm and everything is working, right? Right? Now, when I did my research, this is the sensor. The sensor is this model number, and from the manual, this is the signal that comes out the sensor, right? So this particular signal now, right? I have a table here with these values. These values have been converted into these signals that, right? I use a converter or something. I transform these values into the sensor signals, and these signals are going to be pumped into the system, right, for processing. Simple things like that. So you could bypass the issue with sensors and so on, right? But you have to show some sort of engineering. Remember, this is computer engineering, right? So you have to show the engineering aspect. If you decide to use hardware, do a hardware type project, okay? Right? Right, folks? There are people who try to monitor networks, server power consumption, heat, and all kind of thing. They try to do that environmental in servers, right? Because that's critical in nature. Okay. There are people who are looking at networks, behavior of the network, and so on. Okay. There are people who did websites for businesses and so on. Okay. But again, you can't just look at it as a website. You gotta look at it as a web application now, right? Because we have a lot of services and so on being applied. People no longer want simple websites anymore, right? The website must do more, okay? And you have been using websites. If you look at Amazon and all those different places, you realize that the security aspect of logging on, even into your simple Gmail, is different now. Locked devices and so on, right? Additional security and so on. So look at those things, right? And you can probably add them as features into your system. Good? Right, folks? So yeah, your work cut out for you, right? Get those documents done for me, right? I think I put the deadline as Tuesday next week, right? So start to jump on it, start to word it, start to outline your features, right? Nothing too wordy, please. Get straight to the point, right? That was a problem by the UK accreditors. They find we have too much of wordy stuff, right? We as engineers need to get straight to the point. Okay? Get straight to the point. Not bullet form, not too short. No one word thing, right? No, describe this stuff in 2 or 3 sentences versus an entire paragraph, right? When they describe many things, it will form an entire paragraph. Okay? Just be mindful of that as you write this stuff. Right, Jordan, I'll talk to you after. Or message me, please, so I can call you. Yeah. Any questions? You sure? No questions.
No, sir.
Very good. All right, cool. Get cracking for me, please. All you have all your work cut out for you, right? Do not underestimate this, right? Okay? I will be checking up on you. Good? This is clear.
All right.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too long and bog you down with too many formalities. I just want all your working. Focused and working. Right? Good. So have a good evening. You all get cracking. If you have nothing to do, get cracking on that proposal for me, please. Right? I'll put the link up already. Cool.
Hi, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Take care, sir.
Yeah, no problem.